Let's see what we got. Yay. Get that thumb free, give it a tap. Tap, tap, taparoo. It's Facebook. Hey, what's going on? You guys are real ones. Thank you. From my heart to your thumbs. Thank you, thank you. Awesome. Do, 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 do. Do, do, do.
Better? Are we back?
I don't know if it's like lagging for them because you never lagged for me. Like you just come through smooth, so I don't get it.
Same here. I don't know, but hopefully it's okay. All right.
Yeah,
All right. So y'all, if you're just jumping back in, I'm glad
yeah,
y'all came back, but I know you're loyal to Whitney. So
yeah.
I'm
They're so
Anjua.
good.
Yeah, I mean they love you, and I'm so glad that you were able to start the live off because I think it's perfect that you did it with your audience. Support Whitney tomorrow because Whitney's going to be on my podcast, The Electric Feminine, tomorrow. The podcast drops at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spotify or Apple. Um, she's brilliant. She's funny. She's really, really great. So it would be
Thank you.
amazing if you all listened tomorrow and blew her numbers out of the water. I mean, numbers aren't everything, but it's about knowing that y'all are supporting.
Yeah.
Okay, great. The quality is so better. Okay, great. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yes, so I'm so glad to come on. And I think do we talk about BDSM? I don't remember.
I don't know that we got into that. That's actually something that because one of my followers pointed out, they were like, you seem to be expanding into this content. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of consuming my life. So.
Wait, no, but they're not wrong. I've noticed that too. So what is that new? Is that a new interest for you or
It's not a new interest. I mean, I've been in the BDSM community for like 6 or 7 years, but never like in a Dom or like a DS dynamic. Like I know about DS dynamics, but usually I was just like bottom topping and impact scenes and things like that. And I like um masochism, I guess you could say, like a little pain to get to pleasure. It's like an express lane to endorphins. So it's like you steady build up of like impact. So you can go on this little endorphin ride, and then usually that would be separate from like schmecks. Like I would do kink with people, but not schmecks with those people.
okay.
So it'd be separate things. So now I have this girlfriend, and she was like, "I want you to be my dominant," and I was like, "Well, I will study to do that very well." Like I, I have the personality type for it, but I didn't have all like the language and the skills and everything. So I'm just like developing myself along the way and like learning her.
I absolutely love I love that you right away were like, I will educate myself, no problem. You
Yes,
know what I mean? Which is
yes,
so in line because I was saying, I think I say it in the podcast, like you're a sponge. I love listening to you because the way you're able to just retain the information, speak the information through, break it down so clearly. So
yes.
so you're feeling, is it now that are we seeing this rise in your content with BDSM a little bit more because you're studying it because of the dynamic of what's going on with you and your girlfriend?
Yeah, I mean, they're seeing it right now. Hi, honey. I'm in the middle of something right now. Did you need something, sweetheart? No, you good? I love you.
What's up, Texas?
Okay, that's okay, buddy.
All that and no schmacks. Oh, I love that. That's a really good point. Did you see
Sometimes
that?
you're not like sexually attracted to the people that you do kink with, so you just do kink with them because you have a trusting relationship, but there's no interest in having sex with them. It's just you trust them to take you through an endorphin ride.
Oh, I love that. That's so interesting.
It's
Because I always
intimacy, like
wait,
platonic intimacy.
so it doesn't always end necessarily in any kind of schmex act.
No. Sometimes you're just there to release something, like you go to the gym, you work something off, you're like, yeah. Yes, the podcast is on Spotify. It's called the Electric Feminine Podcast, guys. And you can get it on Spotify for sure.
Yes, yes, and Apple, and I think several of the streaming,
You're on all those.
yeah, the platforms.
Nice.
And again, amazing, so good. So okay, so this is the track that you're kind of focused on a little bit more. Can I? Somebody had asked some questions there, and I thought they were kind of interesting.
Okay.
Could we talk about healthy, unhealthy dynamics for us noobs?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the main thing with being new is like you shouldn't be scouting for a DS dynamic unless you own yourself. If you don't own yourself, especially if you're going to be a submissive, like you decide you identify as a submissive and you step into a dominant and you want to hand over yourself to someone, if you don't own yourself, you don't have anything to give. Like, then you're just playing into someone else's stuff. Like, you have to have a plan or you'll become a part of someone else's. So, submissives are strong, whole beings that know exactly what they want, know how to communicate their boundaries, wants, and desires. So, when it's time for negotiation and collaboration, they're not like, I don't know, I'm not sure. They're like, we're going to sit down with a yes, no, maybe list and discuss where I'm comfortable, where I'm not comfortable, and you're going to respect that. And then they hand over their control with the understanding that they will be taken care of implicitly.
Okay. Okay. All right. Hold on. Wait. I want to break this down because there might be people on here like me that are super, super new, super
Yeah,
new, even newer than this person who asked this question. Um,
yeah,
so you're basically saying it's important you know yourself so that whether you're sub or dom doesn't matter what you favor, right? That you know
absolutely.
yourself so that you're able to articulate, advocate for yourself in the moment clearly.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. You need to
gotcha.
be able to say no firmly. If you don't feel comfortable saying no, your yes doesn't mean shit. You're just saying yes to comply, to like avoid discomfort. So it doesn't mean anything. You're just people pleasing and manage someone else's emotional state instead of stating what you are actually comfortable with and what you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to say no
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because as a Dom, I have to trust you that you're going to safe word once you're past enjoyment.
Right.
Don't step into endurement. We're not there to endure for the sake of the other and that not giving pleasure to the submissive because some submissives will find pleasure in enduring for their Dom. But if they've surpassed enjoyment, now we're just enduring. Now there's a pocket of resentment. Now there's no connection. There's no attunement. It falls apart. It's not
Mm-hmm.
sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See that part, that's the part I don't trust. I don't trust, like you have to, the trust piece is so important because, if you say push and I push, like I have to know in my heart that you are going to stop when it is too much.
Yeah.
Um,
As
that
a
would
Dom,
be
that's a
so
big
nervous.
deal. I have to like hold my submissive's face and say, you're going to safe word when you feel ready to, correct? Not when
Mhm.
you like think that I want you to. Doesn't
Right.
have anything to do with me. I'm here to fulfill the negotiation agreement between her and I.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody gets pleasure, everybody has power. I'm just making all the decisions based off of the information that I've been given.
Okay, so this is interesting. So would you say, is it always that dynamic in dom and sub where there's a give and take that everybody's receiving something? Because I think the perception, and I know how much it's skewed. We talk about this, the movies do it crazy, and it's crazy in the media and
They
all
do
that stuff.
vanilla crazy. They
They
do
do
vanilla
well, vanilla
Mex,
crazy,
injustice, everybody.
but yeah. Wait, but do you know Sedistrix? She's on here and
Mhm.
yeah, so she came on the podcast and she was like, oh my God. It made her crazy how many rules, like just general. cornerstones they just stepped on, forgot about, acted like didn't matter, like it was dangerous. Basically, she was very upset about it. But you know, it always seems to portray that the dom isn't really receiving anything. The dom is just like it's the
I
sub
get
receiving something.
right. Oh man, I get so much. So dominant is a personality. So
Uh-huh.
you want to be a dominant for, and there are multiple different kinds of doms, and I don't have all the language, but I'm what you call like a service top. I get pleasure from servicing. Now, there are different services because my submissive is into different kinds of kinks. So one of her favorite kind of kinks is degradation. She loves to be objectified and degraded. And like
Mm.
I've had to go into deep negotiation with her that like if we get into this in a scene, I'm going to need specific aftercare. Like I need you to understand that I love you, I respect you as a human being, but yeah, I am going to call you a bunch of nasty things. I'm going to do some things physically that's going to be like objectifying, and this fulfills like her fantasies and desires. And that's the mainframe. So when I do that, I'm watching arousal pump through her body. And as I'm watching this, I'm so attuned with her that I can feel it come out of her skin and into mine. And it
Mm.
radiates through me. And I can feel it. It's just like a charge. And I can have a full on orgasm from this. Just watching her get everything that she wants.
Wow. This is what we're talking about tomorrow. Y'all need to tune in. If you are just jumping on Electric Feminine Podcast tomorrow on Spotify, on everywhere, Whitney is on with me. And this is the kind of stuff that we are getting. And she's this and even more, even better, because candid, there's no holding back on the podcast. So you
Right.
say it.
I say it. It's
You
at
say
5 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, right? Is
5
that what you said?
a.m.
5 a.m. Eastern.
Oh,
Y'all
we're
get it
starting
to
off in the
breakfast.
morning.
Have coffee with me.
On your way to work. I wouldn't do it with the kids in the back seat unless you got your earphones in. It's
No,
definitely
not with the
rated E
children.
for
With the
massive
children.
explicit.
Right. You're asking me if I distinguish between submissive and romantic partners. Aren't the two very different? Not in my world. My romantic, loving partner is also my submissive.
Mm,
Would
mm.
you consider only practicing DS with romantic partners only? That depends. That depends. The entire DS dynamic is negotiated. Sometimes it doesn't even involve schmex. Like that is part of the negotiation. And some people will have a written contract.
I love that.
Hmm. Me and my partner are doing it just for the foreplay of it. Like it's so hot to sit down and write down like these are, my boundaries, these are my desires, this is what my expectations, and like and then going over like the balance and comfort in meeting, and it's stupid hot. There's just so much intention.
Woo! Good stuff. Okay, so wait, somebody asked, will there be a replay? It's not live. We already recorded it. This
Mhm.
is you can listen to it as many times as you want. You can take weeks to listen. Don't do
Right.
that. Yeah, it's only an hour long, but yeah.
It's called the Electric Feminine Podcast, and you can find it on all the podcasting platforms like Apple, Spotify.
Yeah.
Check it out.
So how do you know if you're a sub or a dom?
Oh man, so I didn't even know that I was a dom. I bottom in Impact Play. It's like my favorite position. I like to get the beatings. And I just like I know I had top energy and stuff. I'm what you call a switch. My mindset can go boom boom. I can go to the BDSM dungeon with my submissive, be put on a wall, go through an impact scene, wrist restraints taken off. I pick up my duffel bag, I go straight to my submissive and say, "Get on the wall," and I'm already in my dom space before picked up bag and done.
Yes.
Because my
Okay.
top is like I've never seen anybody switch that fast. I'm like, this is just the context. I just fluid with it.
Okay. All right. Because I feel like I thought, and I don't know, like I said, I'm really new, but just in the idea of it, I really thought, okay, more sub. But then recently, certain things have surfaced, and I'm like, oh no. And even so much so that I was speaking to like my spiritual advisor, and he was
Yeah.
laughing. He's like, "You're ridiculous." He's like, "You thought exclusively good at." He's like, "You could probably play the part."
I mean, it
He's like, "No."
depends, like who you're with. Like I have my favorite top in the dungeon, and she just makes me feel bottomy, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a beating now, and like I get excited and giddy about it. It's strange. It's like when somebody gives you dopamine, then they make you blush when they're present, like even if it's from a flogger. It's such a weird experience. But I would never try to like use the mindset that I use with my submissive with her. Like it would never even occur to me. So it's just,
Mhm.
it's such a, who's in front of you and how do they make you feel?
The energy, right? It's just
Mhm.
right. And
Yeah.
then obviously that would be the first clue, because if you're in that energy and it does nothing for you,
Hmm.
then you're like, okay, I'm not turned on by this sub energy coming at me or whatever, right?
Absolutely. You know, my submissive, she came to me and she was like, I want you to be my dominant. And that immediately triggered dominant feelings in me. I was like, I want to be your dominant. Yes, I want that. Let's nourish that. Let's make that happen.
Yes. So good. Okay, so good. Um, so what do you think for tomorrow? Just what do you think for tomorrow you're most excited for them to hear?
Mm. Man, I'm trying to remember like the things that
You're
we
like, I
got
told you I don't
into,
remember the conversation, woman.
but
Didn't I just say?
I loved it because it was such an opportunity to talk for so long
I know
about
we did.
and so, I'm so passionate about, so that like the pleasure based stuff like that, I always get excited about that getting out there. Yeah.
I literally, somebody said your videos give me Dom energy. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I know. I think that's why I was the last to know. But thanks.
Right. Right. Somebody said that in one of my videos a while back when I was walking around in my underwear and drinking water, and they were like, look at that Dom energy. And I was laughing because I was like, I bought them in the dungeon, but okay. And then here I am.
Switch. I love it.
Yeah, it's
I
really,
love it. I love it. Okay, I'll tell you what my favorite, I think one of my other favorite things, other than this piece about pleasure and performance based schmecks and pleasure based schmecks, was the big, to me, I feel like I don't think I've ever heard anybody really say this before. And I'm trying to really rack my brain. Has anyone ever said this? Have I ever read an article about this? I feel like you were the first schmecks educator who was like, the O isn't the end all be all. Like it doesn't have
yeah, not,
to end in O. So that to me, I'm excited for y'all to hear this. You know, if you haven't heard Whitney's take on this and and what this means, the O, obviously y'all know what we're talking about. We can't say it here because violations. But tomorrow, when you listen to the podcast, listen for this piece because I think it was really important because the O is a source of such stress, I think,
yeah,
for so many people.
it's performance anxiety again.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah. And then people like get so obsessed with them that they go to figure out what makes their partner do that. Like a video game, they learn that it's like up, B square, you know?
Mhm.
And then every single time they get in bed with their partner, they might kiss them a little bit, but they go right back to it. Up, B square, up, B square, up. You done wore up, B square out to where it don't even feel good no more because you're trying to expedite O's out of your partner like a damn gumball machine, and you're taking all of the good shit out. Like, just, I know what makes you get there. So let me just repeat that every single time.
Said. Yes. Like play by play. Right. I got
Yeah.
you. I got you.
Instead of being curious and exploring what could feel good, because it's always changing. Like, I don't self pleasure the same way I did when I was 20. Like,
Right.
I don't self pleasure the same way. It's different. And my orgasms are different. My O's are so damn strong now. I don't know whether I'm coming or going, and I don't really care. I'm like, I mean, it's just like,
Hey. Hey. Okay.
you just
Yes.
get better with age, and people try to act like you're obsolete because you're an older woman. I had some troll in my comment section be like, what are you, 40? And I'm like, yeah, and your mom thinks I'm delicious. Don't come at me.
Oh.
You don't come for me. Don't be punching down.
Oh.
You'll swing and a miss. You can't reach me. Like, it's just not what it it's
Swiftly. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why that myth needs to die because it's
It's a
so
total
it's
myth.
so
They're
is, and
trying
it's
to attribute your sexual peak with your reproductive cycle peak. Like, yeah, I can't make babies no more. You know what that means? I have a greater access to arousal because just the thought of an unwanted pregnancy can turn somebody the fuck off.
yes.
Now I don't want to have sex.
Right.
If I thought I might get pregnant for that, I don't want to do it.
Right. Right. Right.
I have a 9-year-old. I'm good to go.
Right.
Go.
Yes. No, so I agree. I agree. I don't I don't know. I feel like it's yeah. I don't know. Do you want to hear read some of these comments?
Yeah. So I know that we're talking about sub
There's a
drop
lot for
again.
you. I feel like you should
Let's see.
address it.
Yeah. So let me get into this. Uh, Me and my partner are not open. We practice intentional monogamy. I do practice kink with other people, but I do not have schmex with anyone else. And that is just something we decided to do because the intensity of our DS dynamic is too much to process polyamory and DS at the same time. Two people perfectly match in every way, but both are submissive. How do you make it work? You're gonna have to get creative.
Mm.
You have to get creative. It's how much effort you want to put into being together.
But that can work.
It can. I mean, it just all depends on what kind of efforts you want to put into creating, intentionality around what you have. Because if two people are submissive, then that means two people are responsive, which means that you have to take more initiative to planning things instead of waiting for things to just happen spontaneously.
Right.
Because if you get two people who are responsive, you have to intentionally create something for everybody to respond to.
Okay.
So it's
So it's just time, intention, willingness.
creativity and curiosity.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
love that.
Coming back through to subdrop. Subdrop is an intense spike of endorphins or like having a really strong O. So you like experience a really extreme height, like spike of endorphins. There's a crash. That crash can happen immediately afterwards, but most of the time it's going to be about 48 hours afterwards. And what happens is you have a dopamine spike. So the dopamine goes way up and then it comes down and prolactin comes in. And prolactin is what creates the feeling of satisfaction. But what happens is prolactin replaces dopamine in the receptors. You can't have dopamine and prolactin at the same time. One knocks the other out. And when that happens, depending on your mental state, depending on how you deal with that, you could feel sad, regretful, shameful, dirty, all these things. And you can soothe that by applying aftercare. But you have to negotiate what kind of aftercare you like. Some people like a weighted blanket. Some people like to be hugged and squeezed. Some people like water. Some people need a text like every day for the next 3 days. Hey, how you doing? Do you need, some help processing the scene? Do I had a really great time with you. How are you feeling today? All these things release endogenous chemicals in the brain to help you balance out that endorphin spike.
So I wish regular Schmex was this thoughtful in the aftercare.
The kink community is constantly gifting people a vanilla people language that they need to address to their relationships. Things like aftercare, informed consent, informed enthusiastic consent, like all these things carry over for everybody.
Like super important, but like yeah. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, yeah, like listening to the district, she's like, well, the cornerstone of BDSM is consent. I'm like, well, yeah,
Yeah,
that's amazing. And then I'm looking, I'm like, as it should be with everything. Why is
everybody.
it amazing? But that's so disturbing that it's amazing to me.
Yeah, it's just like the kink community went out and wrote this stuff down. And it's like Boy Scout guidelines, those guidelines, and everybody needs it. Like everybody deserves that level of intentionality applied to taking your clothes off and bringing your bodies together. That people act like it ruins the mood or something, and it kills me because it's like Esther Perel was talking about spontaneity is the most toxic norm to happen to schmex. Like everybody keeps depending on schmex to be spontaneous for it to be good. But if
Oh,
you've been with somebody for any amount of time,
yeah.
Everything that could happen spontaneously has already happened.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it's just get over that and just plan and create and
Does it matter to you? What do you do with things that matter to you? You prioritize
yeah,
them, you
right.
plan them, and because you put that prioritization in, your partner feels appreciated. Your partner feels desired, which is the most important aspect of schmex, is feeling desired. If you don't feel desired, you ain't in it.
That's the fucking truth. Okay.
Keep going. You're over here. You're trying to figure out what's going on with your partner. Why aren't they in this? Why aren't they here with me? Why?
Like detached, like not even there. Yeah, but this little piece is blowing my mind. Like the fact that the BDSM community took the time to create basic structure because they saw the necessity to it, but yet I'm literally going, what if the entire world had operated, and maybe there are parts of the world where it's like this with vanilla schmex, I guess is what we refer it to, right? Which is just
Yeah,
everyday schmex. Um,
yeah,
with these same guidelines, like
yeah,
hardcore since childhood. This is what you were taught in health class, the cornerstone of, and maybe that is happening in health
yeah.
class. It wasn't happening in my health class, but
It's happening in some like Canadian health classes because they have shit. I forget what it's called, but there's an acronym up there. CCAN. Yeah, it's called CCAN, SEICCAN. And they went and wrote a comprehensive schmex education guidelines that include the LGBTQI community, and they include pleasure. Instead of, here are some exaggerated pictures of herpes, and here's how to put a condom on a banana. They're actually talking about like, what does pleasure look like? What does informed consent look like? This is like way more important. And I still can't figure out why we're separating genders when we teach schmex ed. Like, you leave them, babe, together, all in the same room.
mm-hmm.
The first one of them to laugh or snicker at something, just stop and just be like, something funny, and continue. Everybody needs to know
Normalize it.
about menstrual cycles. Everybody
Right.
needs to know about nocturnal, ejaculation in the middle of the night. Everybody needs to know that an erection does not equal arousal. It's just something that happens. Most cis men just wake up that way. It's not like some of them are ready to go in the morning because testosterone spikes the most in the morning, but some of them are just need to go pee and they're not even thinking about schmex, but they got a heart on. But that does not imply arousal.
Right. Like
Let's
basic.
talk about it.
Look at you. Get your hands going. Like when you
Again,
get fired up and
like,
ready to go. When Anna Grace said Anjua's getting her mind blown. No, but I am. But this is with you all the time. Every time I watch a video, I'm like, what? No, and because I'm studying sex education because I want to be a sex coach
yeah.
and or add that to my repertoire of the stuff I already do. And there's so much stuff that I'm like, you know nothing. Like you don't
Oh,
know
honey, I
nothing.
read sex research every day, and it's just a rabbit hole. Like when I was reading about, they put those women in a functioning MRI and showed that when you imagine stimulation to the nips or to down here, it actually lights up some places of the brain more than if you actually touch it.
Right.
And
Like
I'm
the
going off.
education.
Going off reading about like it's called the genital sensory cortex. And the
Okay.
more you engage with it, you can thicken it. So it's like it sits horizontal straddle on your brain, like between the places where they're connected. And when you stimulate like cis women on their nit, it directly stimulates this area down here. So it stimulates this part of the brain, but this part of the brain sends signals down and starts like pulsing and doing everything as if you are being touched there. And you can even do it through imagining. And it just depends on how much you want to get into thinking about your V and your relationship with your V. So the context is like the more that you can get into your body, like the way that you lead women, like getting
Yeah.
them into their body, that's like the first step of it. And then getting them in sync with their V, and then getting them to like just Like I'll instruct clients to just take their hands and cup it over it and just feel the heat from it and just breathe.
Yes. Oh, we do that in class. I love doing.
Yes. Yes. And I just thought I was making a mind body connection more, but I'm reading these science articles and it's actually thickening the genital sensory cortex. It is expanding erotic plasticity, is allowing you an expansion into like a multidimensional level of schmex. Like it.
Hold on. 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 So, what about this? Have you ever done it where you hover your hand like above your body and you can feel
Yes, that's
like
called an energetic on the erotic blueprint.
it's bananas to me and my body is
Yep.
like rolling under
Yep.
my hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your nervous system can sense touch from 4 inches outside of your skin, like no problem. And you can utilize that in an arousal buildup and like a foreplay or just a connecting with your partner. Like,
So, do you think oh here okay, so here's what's funny. Half is like what I know and half is like stuff that I think happens naturally or I stumble upon. Do
mhm.
you think that so if you don't know, y'all who don't know me, I'm Anjua and I'm a life and central movement coach. And I teach a style of erotic stylist central. Are you allowed to say that
Yes.
word? Whatever.
Yes. I think you
Stylist
can say
central.
that word. Yeah, y'all need to follow Anjua. If you're not,
Okay.
you need to do that.
Hi. Um Yeah, so do you think that my movement or my central movement has allowed for that or connected me to that more?
Yes. Yes. Like, it's why I started following you in the first place. I was like, oh, peep what she's doing over there. Like, you get these women into their bodies, and it's something that in our society has been taken. You know, you see it, it's been taken, and they just can't get in. And then they come, like, once they become my client, I hear, I have lowered loss of sensation, I have numbness, like I can't feel it. Feels like touching this
Mm-hmm.
feel anything, you know? And then so I ask, I'm like, what's your relation with your body? And then there's usually a story of like some narcissistic mother, back there.
Uh-huh.
And with the I'm not good enough. And then there's this, and then the relationship with food. And I'm like, well, how fast do you eat? And they're like, oh, I inhale it like no time.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you don't taste your food. You're barely here. You living up here. You don't feel
Right,
safe
right,
down here. Alarm
right.
bells when you drop down here. Like there's a whole thing that goes with it.
So here's the thing. I get how the central movement is helping with all of that because I teach them that in the class because
Mhm.
someone just asked me today on a podcast that I was on for them. They're like, how does it help you? And I was like,
Mhm.
well, you're connecting to your senses intentionally. And so it's forcing you to slow down to be present. And when you're being present to, what you're feeling and experiencing,
Mhm.
it's going to allow space for you to really like be curious about it to just take it in. So,
Yeah.
but this thing with the hand, that's recent.
Yeah.
I feel like that it was like new level unlocked. Like you know what I mean? Like I just feel like that, I don't know where that came from
Yeah.
within the last like year or so.
Yeah. No, that's awesome because Jaya, she's a sexologist. She teaches
Yes.
the erotic blueprint, and that's the energetic erotic blueprint. When you hover
I've
your
seen her
hands
do it.
over your partner. Yes.
Yes.
It drives me nuts because then it, it's every time that one gets me. The hand hover. Yeah. And then
It's
like,
so sexy.
I just discovered these like genital sensory cortex scientific science articles like last week because I always try to like I'm the kid that takes the toaster apart. So like I understand if I put a strappy sandal on and I have an appendage hanging off of me that
Yeah.
I can feel it and I can feel more than just the base of it hitting me. I look down as I see it going in and out. I feel that. It feels like a tongue
Oh, wait.
against my smitterish. Like someone is directly grazing it and I wanted an explanation and I found it.
I'm laughing because I heard strappy sandal.
Yes, of course you did. That's our code. That's our code.
Okay, I
Yeah.
did. But then I got what you meant, so I'm new here.
Welcome to the Thunderdome. I'll be smuggling this information out like El Chapo. I don't get it to the people.
It's just input.
Gotta get it to the people. You gotta get this info out. But yeah,
Nick.
it was wild. But then, like, I start talking to other folks, and they're talking about how they're like, "Well, how did you get to that level where you could feel it like that?" Like, some people agree, they're like, "Yeah, that's my experience too," and some people are like in between. They're like, "I love it, but I don't feel it like that. What can I do?" And I'm like, "Stroke it. Like, put some schmoob on there and stroke that thing like it's yours, and just
Okay.
like stand in the mirror and just." When I put it on, it's mine.
You can feel that?
Yeah, by imagining it. And the more that I imagine it when I watch and I do it, the more I stimulate that. And your brain is like, the more you use things, it's neuroplasticity. It makes it stronger. You get more connections. It's expansive. You get more sensation the more that you connect with it.
Okay, so how did you get to that? So I know that my way is through movement. How did you get, were you always like this? Like this super connected?
Sexual.
Sexual.
My superpower, like, yoga is my background. So I've been practicing yoga in a yogic lifestyle for the past like 8 years.
Okay.
So my level of proprioception is ridiculous, and like, I have mind body practices. So when
you also do animal flow, right?
I do, yeah, animal flow. So lots of like breathing and drawing the navel in and moving the breath around the body. So I'm used to doing things like breathing and sending the breath down to my feet, feeling it come back at the top of my head. I do a lot of like mental imagery and moving sensation around my body. So putting a schmildo onto my body, strapping it on, it's no problem. I'm gonna sit there, I'm gonna put some smooth on it, I'm gonna stroke it, it's mine. So if your feelings about putting it on is you feel it's very separate from you, you feel it's like a very disconnected thing from you, then that's going to be your experience.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So if it's not your jam, don't put it on your toast for sure. Just ditch it. If it's not pleasurable, don't do it. But if you don't put it on your toast. But if you like it, then love that shit. Because the more that you do, the more you'll connect with it, and it'll expand the sensation possibilities.
Okay. Hold on. I need a second. You just, it's like there's guests that talk to me about this stuff, and then there's you taking it to all whole new places. So, new places for me. Like I say, I'm literally like Dorothy in Oz right now. The fuck.
Yeah.
So how is there anything else you wanted to speak to? How long did you want to be on, by the way? I didn't know.
Oh, and then I just want to remind everybody that you want to check out the Electric Feminine podcast. You can look for that on all the podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify. It'll be available 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. It's going to be me on there. You want to listen? Yeah. You want to follow Anjua here on TikTok if you're not already. It's hot. It's hot over there. Y'all want that?
You're so good at plugging the podcast. I appreciate you. Thank you.
It's not a problem.
What am I hearing into?
It's like I've been doing nothing but plugging Patreon for the past month, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I know. How's that going? Are y'all on this Patreon thing?
Let's
go.
Patreon is going so amazing. It's so fun over there. Like, I'm learning how to edit videos.
What I find if I'm going on there.
If you went on to my Patreon, you're gonna find my purple V back there. I'll bring it on over. Okay. I'll get it real close. I'll show you all the parts, and then I'll put it in my mouth and show you some techniques. Like, you're gonna see that. You're gonna see there will be like schmildos over there. I take them out. I'll show you what to do with those.
Strappy sandals.
There are strappy sandals over there. There's the first of the strappy sandal installation, because strappy sandals are pretty extensive content. So there's like accessories and stuff. So I had to break it down into parts. The
Oh,
first installation is on there. There's
okay.
oral plus penetration because everybody always wants to do the mouth and the fingers at the same time. And when you first start that, then it's like patting your belly, rubbing your head and shit.
Well, can I interrupt for 2 seconds here because so I'm reading this book in conjunction with my excuse me, oops, I almost said it. Schmeg's education course. I'm reading She Comes First.
Okay.
This by Ian something or other. I don't know his last name. I didn't mean to say it disrespectfully, but Ian is his first name. But um
Yes.
so this he's describing like the perfect positioning and whatever. And I'm just
Yes.
like, it just sounds acrobatic and crazy. And like that's not my department. I mean, that is yours.
Right.
So you have the experience there. So I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like it sounds like the way he was described. I'm
Yeah.
trying to learn it all. And it's like I was like, wow, that sounds really complicated.
I have this shortcoming that I have a knee-jerk reaction to reading anything about the female body from a man.
Oh, I knew this was coming. I knew it and I brought it up and I was like, oh, she's gonna eat you alive. Why did you do this?
I have an issue. I have an issue.
No, and it's valid. And it's valid. And I read it because a friend recommended it highly.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, because
I have
I
put it
get
in my
that.
book cart so many times just because it's a part of that, and I'm always trying to expand my little Schmex library over there.
Yes.
But I think I only have men on my whole shelf,
Okay.
and one of them is Dr. Michael J. Bader, and that's because he went in deep on the psychological. So he's a psychotherapist. He's like 25 years of psychotherapy, and he uses like his client base and his experience to explain to you how arousal works psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, fine, let's do that. But when you're going to talk about, like, I have the book called I don't know what I can say on here. So the Smagina Bible. It's by Dr. Jen Gunter. And I never would have bought that if there would have been a man's name on it. Because I'm like, there's no way. You don't have the visceral experience of carrying this vessel around. How
Right.
dare you? I'm
I
sorry.
totally get that. And I think that and I totally get that. And for what it's worth so far, it is well done. You
Okay.
know, I'm checking for that and really just but
Mhm.
yes, it is a good point.
It's hard.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, you know.
I
That
wanted
is
to read
not
it
the
so
book.
many times. I was just like, I'm gonna be judgy. What do you know about having a kitty?
Strike
What?
that from the record. 97 people did not hear that I suggested this book written by a dude about
No, it's
girl.
fine. Like it may be a really great book. It's just my
Uh,
knee jerk reaction.
okay, so you know what was I interrupted you with that story, so I apologize. You were talking about the other things that were being offered though on your Patreon. Is there anything else that you wanted to is it like a monthly thing? Do you have different tiers? What's going on?
So Patreon, it's $15 a month, and I only have one tier. The whole point of Patreon was I wanted a place to just be myself and like, yeah, they don't pass the vibe check, cat, and they're out. It's fine. I mean, if you're gonna call yourself trolling nincompoop, I mean, it's just like
I
trolls
know.
don't even want to be original anymore. I'm like, wow, it's just like whatever. But I don't have time for that because attention flows where energy goes. None of that. But so I just have the one tier. I'm thinking about putting another tier on for like live stream because I love doing these lives, but I'm very generous in my lives and I would like to be supported in a fiscal manner for
You
the
are
kind of
so
content.
generous. You give a lot of information out. You do.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wait, so you're saying all those videos that you were talking about and all those topics are in that monthly tier?
Mhm. Mhm. For just $15 a month, you're getting like high quality Smex
What?
education from me. Yeah. Yeah, it's like
Y'all need to
incredibly
get on
affordable.
that. What?
Oh yeah, I'm less than Netflix, and I pay for that every month. I don't even open the app.
I wish you had opened this a year ago. I would have just gone to you for my schmegs.
There you go. There you go. I'm looking forward to get into BDSM content over there. So I've got
Yeah.
to get through all the generalized stuff, and then we'll get more into like DS dynamics because in 15 $15 a month is it. Links in my bio. Love to have you. Absolutely love to have you. Um, yeah, I'm absolutely thinking about doing scheduled lives in the second tier. That one would be $25 a month. So you would get all of the videos. And then like the library's like constantly growing. So every Wednesday I put a new video out. This last video I put it out with a Google document attached because there's so many toys and accessories and stuff. So that way people could just watch it, and then the toys and accessories would be written somewhere else. So they didn't have to take notes or things like that. Cause I care. I
That's
care,
so
work hard for my patrons.
No, it's really well thought out, as I assumed it would be. Honestly, I expect nothing less. No, I think this is brilliant for $15. It's amazing. That's
Hmm.
amazing.
I
Um,
mean,
that's a lot of content that you spoke to. So, is it a reoccurring $15? Is that how that works?
just once a month.
Okay, and they
Yep.
get is it one video a week or?
Mhm. So the library is growing. So whatever time, if you went and signed up right now, you would have access to like 8 videos, and
Okay.
then every Wednesday you're gonna get a new one. And the last one I did was like 30 minutes long, and I had to cut it. I was like, okay, that's enough of that. But I try to keep them between like 20. I started out and they were just like 8 minutes, but now we're getting into what my followers call my spicy Mary Poppins bag, and that's my
I love it.
it's
Okay.
this big ass tote bag, and it's got all of the toys in it. So
It's
there's a
obviously
lot.
stuff that would make me. I mean, you've already probably made me blush, and I clutched my imaginary pearls like 3 times. But yeah, okay. So
Yeah. Oh yeah, you would fall out in my the strappy videos that I make because I put it on, I put the hardware in, and then I tell them, I'm like, you know what you got to do now, right? Like you have to. You have to do the helicopter. You have to like swing your legs and slap that thing around and just laugh and just get that out of the way. It's the first thing you do. Hmm.
that's,
Oh
I'm
no.
really, really intrigued. I really am because I feel like you just know so much. Did you have to answer some things?
No, you started like freezing
No.
up, but now you're good.
Did I go away?
You just were
Okay,
like
cool.
a glitch
Um,
in the matrix for a second.
Kat, I'm literally like I'm like I don't I knew I'm like my mouth is on the floor. So, all right, y'all. I'm gonna get ready to pop off. Are you
Hmm.
cool with that?
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah. I'm
so
gonna
much for
video chat my sweetheart.
inviting me on.
Oh, thanks for doing this. Yeah. You guys tune into the podcast.
So,
All right. The Electric Feminine. Get it.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
watch. I want to see Whitney's episode and share it. Sharing is caring. So, thank you, and it was nice meeting everybody.
Yay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, lovelies. I'm gonna go video chat with my boo. Thank y'all so much for hanging out. I know this one was a little bit different. I appreciate y'all so much. All right. Good night. Good night.